What Daystar did. After Joni Lamb died. The Accountability Reckoning. Open the Daystar Television Network app right now. Find it on your cable package or your streaming device. Pull up the live programming schedule and look at what is airing. You will see Marcus Lamb, not a tribute special, not a memorial compilation produced in the weeks following his death, not a one-time retrospective honoring what he built. You will see Marcus Lamb listed as a regular program host in the current broadcast rotation, airing week after week alongside other active ministries, scheduled as if he is a living presence contributing to what Daystar offers its viewers. Marcus Lamb died in November 2021. That is nearly 5 years ago. The man who founded Daystar, who built it over decades from a regional operation into a Christian broadcasting institution claiming to reach billions of households globally, is currently one of the most consistent presences on the network's programming schedule. And the reason that fact matters, the reason it is not simply an odd footnote but a genuinely revealing data point, is what sits next to it. In the same period during which a dead man's archived sermons became a programming staple, Daystar Television Network quietly shed more than 100 members of its workforce. No public announcement, no statement to donors, no acknowledgement in any official communication that more than a third of the people who came to work every day at this Christian ministry had left the organization. Those two facts together, real people losing real jobs with no public acknowledgement, replaced on screen by archival footage of a founder who has been dead for 5 years, describe more clearly than any financial document what Daystar has actually become in the months since Joni Lamb's death on May 7, 2026. What the board said and what actually happened. On the day Joni Lamb died, the Daystar Board of Directors released a public statement. The statement was measured and confident in its framing. It said the ministry's mission would not change. It said that Joni had worked in advance with the board to ensure an executive leadership structure was in place so that operations could continue without interruption. It said programming would proceed as scheduled. Multiple news outlets reported on that statement. It was the institutional face Daystar presented on the most consequential day in the organization's recent history. Calm, organized, forward-looking. 2 months later, Daystar has no publicly named chief executive officer. The board of directors is running the network. The board's membership has never been publicly disclosed. Not a single named board member has sat down with any journalist to discuss their plans for the organization's future. Not one has appeared on camera to address the millions of people who have been donating to this institution for decades, and who have a reasonable interest in understanding what they are currently funding. The 3 individuals confirmed to still be present in Texas and connected to Daystar's operations are the organization's chief financial officer, a director of information technology, and Rachel Lamb Brown, Joni's daughter, who holds the title of director of communications. Not president, not chief executive, not acting head of the network, the director of communications. Rachel's husband, Joshua Brown, who had been serving in a business development role at the organization, has relocated to Nashville, Tennessee. Whether that move preceded or followed Joni's death is not publicly known. What is clear is that the person responsible for the network's business development is no longer in the same state where the network operates. This is the plan that the board described as ensuring uninterrupted ministry. The human cost, nobody covered. In all the coverage that has surrounded the Daystar scandal, the financial questions, the real estate portfolio, the family conflicts, the legal disputes, almost no attention has been paid to the people who worked there. 2 available data points tell this part of the story. Independent tracking of Daystar's employee figures placed the organization's headcount at 291 at one point in the recent period. A separate measurement of the current workforce shows 181 employees. That is a reduction of 110 people, more than 35% of the organization's workforce, gone from the payroll within a span of less than a year. What does 110 people represent at a Christian television network? It is the production staff running the cameras on live programming. It is the editors assembling content for broadcast. It is the technical engineers maintaining the satellite uplink connections. It is the administrative personnel processing donor correspondence and managing contribution records. It is the people in accounting, in graphic design, in digital content development, in facilities, ordinary professionals who came to work at an organization whose stated values centered on faith, family, and the love of God. Daystar issued no public announcement of workforce reductions. There was no press release. No statement appeared explaining the departures. No communication went out to donors informing them that more than a third of the staff their contributions had been funding was no longer employed there. The monthly partnership letters continued going out asking for continued giving. The donation infrastructure kept operating. The viewers who watched Daystar every morning were not told. This is what the absence of mandatory financial and operational transparency looked looks like when it collides with institutional crisis. An organization that files no public tax disclosures, belongs to no voluntary financial accountability body, and operates under church status, has no legal obligation to tell the people funding it that 110 of its employees have quietly departed. So it did not tell them. The programming rebuild and what it reveals. The financial pressure driving that workforce reduction is not difficult to trace. Daystar's operating model depends on ministries purchasing airtime. Paying for broadcast slots on the network generates the revenue that sustains operations. When paying customers leave, the revenue structure weakens. Since November 2024, at least 18 significant ministry programs have departed the Daystar schedule. Among the departures, Joyce Meyer, one of the most widely watched Christian television personalities in the world, paused her Daystar programming. Jesse Duplantis left. Jack Graham left. Greg Laurie removed his programming. Ray Comfort departed. Hank and Brenda Kunneman left. Lance Wallnau left. Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson left. Each of these ministries represented a paying programming relationship. Each departure is a reduction in the revenue stream that funds the network's operations and employee salaries. The ministries that have remained on the Daystar schedule: Kenneth Copeland, Creflo Dollar, Rod Parsley, Sid Roth, Andrew Womack, are paying customers. They are also figures whose own records in the ministry accountability community raise questions not entirely dissimilar from the questions that define the Daystar controversy. A network that rebuilds its programming foundation around those names after losing Jack Graham and Greg Laurie has not undergone a meaningful reform process. It has reshuffled its roster in a direction that raises its own concerns, and filling the gaps left by departed ministries is archived content from Marcus Lamb. The live programming schedule currently lists Marcus Lamb as the host of multiple regular program slots. The descriptions treat these as current offerings, presentations about faith, presence, and the power of God, listed alongside active ministries as if Marcus Lamb is a contributor rather than the deceased founder whose death in 2021 set everything that followed into motion. There is an irony in this that is difficult to overstate. The man who built Daystar, whose death created the leadership vacuum that exposed everything, has become the most reliable programming presence the network has in the summer of 2026. The live hosts are gone. The family members who carried the on-screen identity of the ministry are mostly absent. What remains is the archive of a man who died 5 years ago. The governance question nobody can answer. At the center of everything happening at Daystar right now is a question that has no public answer. Who is actually running this organization? The board of directors making decisions about a broadcasting operation with approximately $120 million in annual revenue, nearly 40 television stations, a global satellite presence, and 181 remaining employees has never been publicly identified. Not when Marcus Lamb died. Not when the disclosure scandal broke. Not when Jonathan Lamb was removed from his position. Not when Joni Lamb died. Not in the 2 months since. The human beings currently deciding what Daystar's future looks like, whether to honor the succession document Marcus signed naming Jonathan as Joni's eventual heir, how to manage the assets Joni transferred into a private trust before her death, what to do with the donation, infrastructure, and partnership model, how to address the 17-plus affiliate ministry departures. Those individuals are completely unknown to the public. One board member, Tom Calenderer, has been identified in reporting through his involvement in specific documented decisions, including a meeting at which he reportedly dismissed Marcus's signed succession document on the grounds that he had not personally countersigned it. The legal weight of that dismissal has never been tested in any court proceeding, at least not publicly. An anonymous board making consequential financial and governance decisions for an organization funded by public donations is not a transparency problem at the margins. It is the core accountability failure from which every other problem flows. Anonymous boards cannot be asked questions. Their decisions cannot be compared against stated standards because no standards have been publicly committed to. The donors who have trusted this organization with their money for decades have no way to know who is currently exercising authority over it. Rachel Lamb Brown and what her presence means. Of all the figures in this post-Joni chapter of the Daystar story, one has received the least sustained attention: Rachel Lamb Brown, Joni's daughter, who remains the only member of the founding family with any confirmed ongoing connection to the organization's operations. Rachel holds a degree in business administration and has worked in various capacities at Daystar over the years. Her current confirmed title is Director of Communications. She is based in Colleyville, Texas, where Daystar operates. She is present. The allegations that Jonathan and Susie Lamb raised, involving their young daughter and a male family member they referred to in their accounts without naming directly, have been connected by independent researchers to Joshua Brown, Rachel's husband. Joshua Brown has denied all allegations. He was never charged with any crime. The Colleyville police closed the investigation in May 2025, citing insufficient evidence. He voluntarily submitted to forensic polygraph testing on 2 separate occasions. That is the confirmed record as it stands in July 2026. Denied allegations. No charges filed. Closed investigation. 2 past polygraphs. Joshua Brown is in Nashville. Rachel Lamb Brown is in Colleyville at Daystar, holding the communications title. That geographic separation, a wife at the organization her mother led, a husband in a different state, is not a detail to pass over quickly. It suggests that even within what remains of the Lamb family's institutional connection to Daystar, the commitment is not uniform. Rachel stayed. Joshua left the state. The ministry that their parents built, that their brother was removed from, that buried their mother without publicly disclosing her cancer diagnosis. That ministry now exists in a form where Rachel's continued presence appears to be less a product of deliberate planning than of circumstance, leaving her as the last one standing. What donors are currently supporting. The donation mechanisms at Daystar remain active. Partnership letters continue to go out. The infrastructure for collecting contributions from viewers is intact and operational. The people sending those contributions are supporting a network with no publicly named chief executive. They are supporting a board whose members have never been identified. They are supporting an organization that shed more than 1/3 of its workforce without informing the donors who were indirectly funding those positions. They are supporting a programming schedule that features regular slots hosted by a man who has been dead for nearly 5 years. They are also supporting an organization that, by multiple accounts, told donors its president had a back injury while she was dying of cancer, and that moved significant assets into a private trust before her death in a manner structured to minimize public visibility into what happened to those resources. None of that information was provided voluntarily. Every piece of it required investigative work by external watchdog organizations, journalists who refused to back down when threatened with legal action, former insiders willing to speak on the record at personal cost, and property and financial researchers with specialized skills in locating information that organizations would prefer to remain unfound. Whether any individual donor continues giving to Daystar is entirely their own decision to make, but it ought to be a decision made with accurate information about what the organization actually is right now, not what it presents itself as on a programming schedule where a founding president who died 5 years ago appears as a regular host. The question that remains open: Marcus Lamb signed a document. That document names Jonathan Lamb as Joni's eventual successor at the head of Daystar. The document has been confirmed by multiple outlets. A board member dismissed it in a 2023 meeting on the grounds that he had not personally endorsed it. Jonathan Lamb and his wife Susie have since launched a separate ministry. As of the available record in July 2026, they have not pursued legal enforcement of the succession document. They appear to be building something new rather than fighting for the institution. But the document exists. The anonymous board is making decisions that include what to do about it. And the organization those decisions govern is still operating, still broadcasting, still collecting donations, still presenting itself to viewers as the ministry Marcus and Joni Lamb built, while the human infrastructure that actually ran it is quietly 110 people smaller than it was. The mission, the board said, does not change. What the evidence shows is that the mission has already changed in ways the people funding it have not been told about. Whether that gap between what Daystar says and what Daystar does is ever honestly addressed is the question the next chapter of this story will answer, or fail to. Thank you for watching.